Hello everyone, and welcome to Biopedia. Today we're going to be adapting a blog post I first put up on the Biopedia website on the 26th of December 2020. The original post was entitled A Cause of Alzheimer's, Part 1, Biofilms, so I hope you enjoy. Biofilms, or aggregates of material in which bacteria are encased and grow, are structures relevant to fields such as medicine and dentistry, as I mentioned all the way back in episode 1. However, when I discussed them back in October 2020, I specifically mentioned their relevance to disease. So, today, I thought I'd elaborate a bit and discuss a specific example that is at the forefront of modern research. Specifically, we're going to talk about Alzheimer's. This connection between biofilms and Alzheimer's is made in a 2020 review paper published in the Clinical Microbiology newsletter. Although there are other ways of phrasing it, I thought it would be easiest to describe the theory in sequence, starting with infection and ending with the symptoms of Alzheimer's itself. So, according to this mechanism, what happens after biofilm-capable bacteria invade the bloodstream? Bacteria in the mouth have the capacity to form biofilms, to the great frustration of dentists everywhere. It is possible that biofilm fragments with around 100 to 1,000 cells, complete with an extracellular matrix, can become dislodged. This can then enter the bloodstream and become coated with immune system components. Ordinarily, liver cells called Kupffer cells, which are capable of phagocytosis, which I'm sure we can come back to in a later episode, are able to deal with these quote-unquote proto-biofilms once they reach the liver. However, if a fragment has all the protective abilities of a biofilm, these Kupffer cells might not be able to digest them. In this case, the fragments can end up in the arterial system. Given that the aorta pumps oxygenated blood from the heart to the rest of the body, you can imagine that this is a problem. And this is where genetics and other host factors come into the equation. Ideally speaking, the blood-brain barrier, or BBB for short, should not be permeable enough for these fragments to enter into the brain. However, if the immune system of the host is impaired for whatever reason, such as in the case of diabetes or as a result of normal aging, these biofilm fragments might be able to enter the brain. This becomes a problem if the biofilm is able to establish itself on the tissues of the brain. In order to obtain nutrients and prevent the host healing, the biofilm provokes constant inflammation, as evidenced by 2 to 3 orders of magnitude more interleukins and far more neutrophil immune cells than you would expect. In essence, the biofilm hijacks the immune system to create this inflammation. There are different host reactions to this chronic inflammation, but the most relevant for our purposes is the formation of amyloid, or the formation of large aggregates of amyloid protein in the extracellular space. These amyloid plaques are then supposed to be responsible for the so-called quote-unquote tauopathies, which are classically associated with the pathology of Alzheimer's. Now, it's important to realise that there is no consensus about what causes Alzheimer's, or at least I don't believe there is. I'm not an Alzheimer's expert. For all we know, this biofilm-involved mechanism might not be the ultimate cause. As I highlighted with the possibility that amyloid plaques are causing tauopathies, all of these factors may be connected. There are 2 other factors that have been suggested which I might cover in future episodes. One is a microtubule binding protein known as tau, we mentioned just now, hence the tauopathy, and the other is the possible role of microbiome dysbiosis. Given that we've covered the microbiome in a past episode, I can imagine that this would be suitable to explore. However, as of yet, I'm not sure what our schedule will end up being. So, that brings us to the end of today's episode. I'm aware there are limitations of adapting a post such as this, such as that some definitions were perhaps not as thoroughly explained as they might otherwise be, but feel free to let me know at the show's email address if there are any definitions you'd want to see explored in more detail. So, for now, thank you all for listening, and until next time, Have a great week, everyone.